Back in fourth grade, our class was doing a spelling bee, and I was one of the students I was one of the best spellers, and quite honestly, I was expected to, if not win, get pretty far. But in the very first round, on like the easiest word, I misspelled it, and I was out. Like I misspelled the word smooth. I added an e to the end of it. The point is, and how we're tying it into our theme for this week, is many times it's the areas in life that we have excelled at, that we have even had strengths in, areas that we have flourished in, that often become subtle traps for us. Because over time, rather than really being desperate to depend upon the power of God, we very much turn and rely within our own abilities. And that's exactly what we've seen in this passage. So I'm going to read from Mark chapter 9, verses 28 and 29. Here's how it reads. After Jesus had gone indoors, his disciples asked him privately why we couldn't drive it out. He replied, "This can come out only by prayer." So if you remember, what happened is the disciples a couple chapters ago, they were able to cast out these spirits. And now there's this evil spirit that has this boy, and they're powerless to do so. And they really, what happened is they had the audacity to confront the evils of Satan in this world within their own power and their own strength, completely apart from prayer. Perhaps it was ignorance, perhaps it was because of their past successes, but whatever the case, here's the thing. When they were needed most, they were void of power. And it's funny, leading up to this past Sunday, when I was preparing to preach this Sunday, on the Thursday before, I just felt stuck. Like I was sitting in front of my computer screen for like 2 hours and made no progress. And this thought came, you're preaching on a passage that talks about the disciples being void of power because of their lack of prayer. And I was convicted. And it just completely shifted my perspective of how I went about preparing, and felt like God began to infuse me with a power. I want to share a story that I think it's a powerful story. Back years and years ago, when I was in really a bad spot in life, and I was just around some very negative people. I'd been a Christian for a couple years, and I was around a guy who unfortunately was a drug addict. And it scared me when I was around that. And what he did is he had this thing every Sunday night. He would put a needle into his arm. And so one night, for some reason, there was something that came over me that just said to pray that God would like clog his needle and it wouldn't work. And I did, and I prayed for that, and it worked. And he looked up at me and he got so mad. He asked if I prayed if that would happen. And he got really mad. But long story short, afterwards, a couple days later, he came to me and said, if I would have actually gone through with that, and if that needle would have worked, it would have killed me. And I don't know about you, but in my life, I often think of prayer as an afterthought. It's kind of like, okay, after I've exhausted my resources, after I've done my due diligence, after I've done this and that, then I pray. And I think God's message to us is, it's not that we don't labor, and it's not that we don't, toil, but prayer is not an afterthought. It is the first thought. So I want to leave you with this thought. What is an area of life that you can make prayer your first priority rather than an afterthought?